I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. If you'll allow me, I'll give the invocation. Let us pray. Dear Lord, we'd like to thank you for the opportunity to meet here tonight on behalf of the town. We'd like to ask for your guidance and direction in the meeting tonight. We'd also like to ask for your blessings over everything we say and do. For it's in your name we pray. Amen. All right. Item number 3 is the approval of the February 27th, 2023 Planning Board minutes. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to review those.
I don't have any comments. I mean, I looked it over, but, you know, I didn't have anything that I felt worth
All right.
addressing.
Same thing.
All right. I guess no comments. The floor is open for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, we don't see any, we don't have any comments, and motion that we approve the minutes from last month.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, on to the regular agenda items. Item number 1, MA 21-10, Pierce Farm formerly known as Tom's Creek rezoning map amendment. Yes, Meredith, that's you.
Great, thank you. Good evening. For your consideration this evening is a rezoning request that used to be called Tom's Creek and is now called Pierce Farm. So meetings to date, you've seen this a few times before. In October, you gave the case a recommendation of denial, and we thought the case was going to go to the town board on December 6th, but the applicant requested to remove it from that agenda. And it came back to you in December, and you all decided to table the case. I remember you having 6 questions that the applicant was finding answers to, and I'm counting on the applicant tonight to remember all 6 of those questions. And then here we are tonight, March 27th, for you to review this case and provide a recommendation. So the project, or the site, is 223 acres between Forestville and Burlington Mills Roads. The request is to rezone the property from Wake County R30 and Town Residential Low to Residential Medium Conditional Zoning District. And a concept plan and conditions are included. And there is a voluntary annexation included as well. So this is the updated concept plan. It shows, in this illustration, about 560 lots, a 5-acre public park, and TIA road improvements. We'll get some more about that coming up. And this plan shows 2.5 units per acre, although the conditions, the text conditions, cap it at 2.7 units per acre. So there are quite a few conditions that the applicant is volunteering for this case. They include permitted and prohibited uses, that maximum density of 2.7 units per acre, some information about a homeowners association, some things about open space and amenities and private trails, preservation of an existing pond, architectural conditions, something we were just talking about in our training, and then transportation improvement conditions. And the applicant does have a presentation this evening, and we'll go through all of these conditions with you. As per our comprehensive plan future land use map, the future land use designation is medium density residential, and that is defined as single-family detached or attached housing at a density of 3 to 5 units per acre. I mentioned before the current zoning is residential low and a small portion of Wake County residential 30. And the proposed zoning is residential medium conditional zoning district, and that is consistent with the medium density future land use category. Rolesville's community transportation plan illustrates our proposed network, and the green streets are thoroughfares. Burlington Mills Road and Forestville Road are both have an ultimate section of 4 lanes, And then you can see the proposed collector road network in gold, the dash lines, there's a dash line running north-south through the site. We have a fairly new greenway plan that shows side paths along Burlington Mills Road and Forestville Road, as well as a greenway connection going through the subject property. And traffic impact analysis was performed for this site. And this table shows the 2029 full build scenario that shows a total of 500,000, thank goodness it's not, 5,294 cumulative daily trips. And we do have Matt Peach from Stantec in attendance tonight, so if you have any questions about the traffic impact analysis or need some clarifications there, he can assist with that as well as the applicant. So consistency, I mentioned the request for residential medium zoning is consistent with the medium density residential future land use category. The density of 2.7 units per acre is slightly less than the medium density land use designation density of 3 to 5 units per acre, but it's, round up close enough. The 2021 Community Transportation Plan roadway network recommendations are illustrated in the concept plan. And the greenway connection in the concept plan is not exactly straight up and down as shown in the greenway plan. It goes around a little more. You'll see, we can look at that a little more closely in the concept plan, but it does meet the intent of the plan and actually meets the goal of our Parks and Recreation Advisory Board and Open Space and Greenways Committee of having greenways in natural areas instead of on sidewalks or adjacent to homes. So staff does recommend approval of this request because the request is consistent with our comprehensive plan. If you read your staff report or memo, there were 9 items listed, and there were some clarifications and suggestions on the most recent list of conditions. So staff does recommend approval along with what's in this report. If you'd like me to run through that, I can, or we can go ahead and let the applicant go through
I'd like
everything
to
and
hear
explain it. You want to hear? Okay. So in the staff report, item 1, the submittal is a vision and intent statement that summarizes the project and expresses how the applicant finds the rezoning request as a conditional district with the concept plan. And the applicant can expand these statements when they present to the planning board. So staff concurs with the residential medium district and the proposed vehicular circulation network and the proposed greenway. So that's more of a clarification. So item 2 of the submittal is a table detailing the major policy and development standards relative to a residential subdivision. And staff suggests that the title be clarified as residential medium conditional zoning district. Maybe I should go to the concept plan so we can look at that while we're talking. So we recommend a title change and that such standards will be reviewed and require compliance demonstration at future steps in the development process. We were talking about those before, such as the major subdivision preliminary plat. So items 3, 4, and 5 of the submittal are proposed conditions of approval, and the applicant is voluntarily committing to follow at future steps in the development process. So with their first condition, staff suggests that the water tower as a type of major utility be removed from the prohibited use due to the possible future need of such a piece of infrastructure. And then for conditions 2, 6, and 8, as they relate to recreational facilities, staff believes they should be deeded to or owned and operated and otherwise responsible for by the town of Rolesville. So staff suggests that the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board be afforded the opportunity to review and comment on these items. It could be through the Open Space and Greenways Subcommittee or with the board as a whole. I know that they haven't had a chance to take a look at this, and staff reserves the right to continue to review the conditions as the application moves forward. And then item 6, there is a large context map which is, shows this site without the concept plan on it, and there are no comments. Let's see, no comments on that one. And then item 7 of the submittal is this concept plan, and this is not a preliminary subdivision plat, and nor has it been reviewed as such. So that's just important to note. The general location of major aspects and site features are represented, but it is an unengineered concept of development intentions. So just clarification and note there. And then next, The residential building elevations and images that you will see the applicant to show you in a moment will be a guide for compliance review at the time of building permits to help meet those conditions. And then the last item, there were images of the intended amenities relative to the open spaces, trails, and greenways and landscaping. So again, those are items that could be used when we review future submittals that are more detailed in the development process, the major subdivision, preliminary plat, construction infrastructure drawings. So hopefully that will all make more sense when you see the presentation from the applicant. Okay. So at this time, I'll let the applicant come up and give their presentation. I'll pull it up. Yep.
Hi all, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Drew Ammons of Ammons Development Group. With me is the team who's been working on developing this project. Laura Holloman with McAdams has been managing this application. Brittany Chase of Exalt Engineering will talk on the traffic impacts. And Jacob Anderson of Alliance Group and John Myers are local development consultants who we've been working with. My family has owned this property for 19 years, when my dad bought the land from Blair Edens in 2004. This land has always been preserved with the goal of building a residential community in Roseville one day. Pre-development work on this community started in 2020, and at that time, we were asked by the town of Roseville to delay our application so they could finish updating their LDO. In June 2021, this new LDO was approved. This process lasted many months and involved a combination of input from town staff and community volunteers, and there were several rounds of public hearings and feedback. There's a steering committee conformed, of which I'll note that there are several members of this planning board and the town board that were on that steering committee, in addition to the applicant. This is the third time this project has been presented to the planning board. The first time, there's a major lack of detail. The second meeting brought much more detail. However, there are still concerns about the design of the park space, the open space, the traffic impacts, and the lack of neighbor outreach. Before this third meeting, we want to get more involved to show that we are incorporating the feedback and that we're making every effort to right the ship. We've heard the critiques, and we stepped in to make sure that this process is being handled with care. Over the last few months, we've worked with several of the most impacted neighbors to find solutions for them. This community deserves to have the history of the land highlighted. The first thing you'll notice is the rebranding of the community's name to Pierce Farm. After many conversations, Pierce Farm was chosen as it ties into the historical use of the land and honors those who still live in the area today. We've had a greater commitment to communication and enhancements in businesses and residents at Walker's Crossroad, which is the intersection of Burlington Mill and Forestville. We are currently in conversation with those neighbors today. Further, to help ease any fears, we are committed to the following: safer driveway aprons for individuals and communities along Burlington Mill and Forestville to ensure adequate and safe access for any driveways that are impacted by the road construction. Commitments to on-site investments at Harvest Moon and Heritage Market. Commitments to on-site investments to neighbors impacted by the traffic widening at Pierce Farm's entrance on Forestville Road. We have started and will continue discussions with Wake Electric to help mitigate and evenly distribute the burden of traffic improvements at Burlington Mill and Forestville Road. With their cooperation, we hope to work within the right-of-way. We've also committed to improve stormwater enhancements along the shoulders of Forestville and Burlington Mill, creating safer streets and better water management infrastructure. I will now pass off to Laura, who will be walking us through the site plan improvements. Thank you very much for your time today.
Hey, good evening. And Happy New Year. The last time I came, it was a week before Christmas, so good to see everybody again. Just going to put it on a... Okay, so thank you to Drew. He did a great job in highlighting the history of the process, where we've been. Drew and Jacob have done a great job of rolling up their sleeves and really trying to reach out to the community, because we heard from you all that was something that that was lacking at this stage in the game, and quite frankly needed to happen. We needed to have those conversations with adjacent property owners, and we'll continue to do so as those are still evolving. But in terms of the vision and intent, this application, these revisions tonight are primarily focused on enhancing commitments to create positive impacts to the community. As Drew mentioned, we've had several communication instances with respect to the neighbors and the history. We know this is a unique piece of property, and we're trying to be mindful of that. We've also adjusted our sketch plan, which I'll get into here in a little bit, to create significant environmental stewardship, and that's seen in the sketch plan and the zoning conditions. We didn't take anything away. All we did was enhance and add to, and I think that's an important point to bring up. So let me go through the context map. We, of course, know where we all are at this point, but this is really what I really want to get into, which is the revised concept plan. So the first thing that jumps out to me, different from the previous plan, is there's much more green, usable open space. We heard you all loud and clear on that. So overall, we've created a more intentional, detailed, and efficient site design that allows for more public and private open space. We also have created substantially more continuous pedestrian access and vehicular connectivity throughout the site. And you see the main difference of that is this residential collector street that we've reconfigured. This maximizes access to large areas of active open space, which you see here's a large active open space area. This is the main amenity. This is the public trailheads, which I'll get into here in a minute. So this collector design will actually also feature a series of roundabouts that you see here and here. Those have yet to be engineered, but they create an instance of traffic calming. We know that this is an important collector that's going to alleviate traffic congestion at the intersection of Burlington Mill and Forestville, but we also need to be mindful of the residents in the neighborhood, and we've done that. It also will have on-street parking, which will be properly sized to be able to handle on-street parking safely, as well as two-way traffic. That'll be something that we get into further as we move along to preliminary plat. But that's something that'll certainly be designed with that in mind, and that'll also additionally help traffic calming in the subdivision and allow folks to access the active open space areas as well. In addition to constructing a greenway along Toms Creek, the site will now provide off-street greenway routing from the town park sites to the Toms Creek Greenway, including locations for public trailhead parking and park improvements. And that's in these areas right here. And that's something that's new and something that we're excited about providing. So in addition to the public park here in this area that you all have seen before, we're also adding public trailhead locations as well. And I want to make it clear that our application now establishes this sketch plan as a committed element of the rezoning. That was something that was talked about back in December about, okay, well, we see this guide, but what does it really mean? Well, now it's a committed element, and it's part of the rezoning process, and something that staff is going to use should we move forward to the preliminary plat process. Example architecture, we talked about this. This is here. This hasn't changed since December. The project team came up with this architecture. It Toll's departure has nothing to do with, does not affect this at all. And that's exactly how zoning conditions should be. It shouldn't matter who the builder is. What should matter is that you have concrete, clear architectural conditions that speak to zoning conditions, so that no matter what and who develops this property, they have to adhere to these zoning conditions, because zoning conditions are carried with the land, no matter what. So those are just examples of that, again, speaking to to architectural features throughout the community that will allow for high-quality residential development, which is something that Rolesville has come to expect, quite frankly. This is the active and passive open spaces. So this is really where we saw tremendous growth. And let me just go back to the concept plan so that you all understand. The quality and quantity of the park land dedications have improved in the sketch plan update. Overall, town park land dedication has been increased by 3 additional usable acres to a total of 9 usable acres. So what do I mean when I say usable? I mean, it's not just stream buffer and wetlands that folks can't get out there and enjoy on. This, in addition to the public parkland, we also have a public trailhead that can be used for restroom facilities and parking lot facilities, things that I think the last time I got up here and spoke, Derek, you had a very good question about, okay, I see we've got these planned greenways. How do folks access them and enjoy them? And we've tried to be mindful of that comment and really expand upon that. And I think we've done a good job. And so now the sketch plan before you that you see provides for an overall active open space to increase by 6 acres for a total of over 22 acres total. So I just want to make clear that that's reflected in the site data table correctly in the concept plan. I know the site data table, the zoning application does not reflect that accurately, but we do wish to go on record with this commitment that it is 22.7 acres total of open space, and that the site data table you see here is correct. So the sketch plan and application now clarify that the development will also construct this road here, known as Road B, by the dedicated park on Burlington Mills Road. So I just want to make sure that, quite frankly, I apologize. I thought that was made clear and assumed, and I just want to make sure that you all understand that that's something that the developer is going to install. So that'll be a workable access point for this development, and won't be dependent on town funds to make that happen. In terms of, as Drew mentioned, we are also committing to a wide variety of community investments, safer driveway aprons for individuals and communities along Burlington Mill and Forestville to ensure adequate and safe access for any driveways that are impacted by road construction. Commitments to provide private investments to the Harvest Moon and Heritage Market properties, as well as properties of neighbors impacted at the Pierce Farms entrance on Forestville that we just spoke about. Stormwater enhancements along Burlington Mills Road and Forestville Road near the intersection to improve traveler safety and usability of the adjoining properties. We're continuing to work through that. And as Drew mentioned, I just want to emphasize that we are having ongoing discussions with Wake Electric about their facilities to help mitigate and evenly distribute the impacts of traffic improvements at Burlington Mill and Forestville. I've always been proud to present this plan, but this is something that you all have helped with and made better. And that's something that is evident in our last meeting. We talked a lot about, okay, well, I see what you're doing, but you're not quite there yet. I see where you have lots, but, do we have enough active, usable open space? Do we have enough intentionality with regards to pedestrian connectivity, and are we meeting requirements for residential collector? Are we really we had all those discussions. We had talks about the existing pond. If you remember, the existing pond and the main amenity were kind of squeezed in that same area. We had a lot of talk about that. Well, now this existing pond is left alone, and we're not trying to have that main amenity right next to it. We're having it further south on the other side of the road, which is going to create it's going to be more centrally located to the majority of the folks. It's also going to create safer and more well-intentioned protection of natural resources along this area as well. So that's something that was not done by accident. In terms of, also want to talk about the active and passive open spaces. Again, this hasn't changed from last time, but it's such a comprehensive list. I want to make sure that we're giving enough attention to it. You know, these, Meredith mentioned in her earlier kind of reintroduction to this for you all, that everything in this packet are things that are going to be used against our future subdivision plan. I think that's important, because I think before, as this has been described to you all, we've said, okay, well, this is sort of a guide, or this is sort of a vision, right? And now we're saying this is an enforceable rezoning package that you all can use, and that you all can make sure that we've done what we said we're gonna do, and that's because we've put it exactly with our rezoning submittal, and that'll carry on with the land should this project move forward. So everything on the screen, we talked about active open space, again, areas that you can actually use and that are programmed and that are gonna allow for proper social interaction of all ages. You know, pickleball courts, I see folks out there from 10 to, you know, to 70 with my neighborhood's pickleball court. So you know, it's a court. In fact, one of my Parks and Rec director said, okay, if you build one court, just know you're going to have to build more than one, because it's so popular. A clubhouse amenity with pool, you know, this of course a subdivision of this size will have that. In terms of natural play areas, we're excited about that too. We've come a long way than just kind of setting up a slide and swings and saying goodbye. We have a lot more intentionality to really allowing for open spaces, you know, tot lots and playgrounds to really feel like they're embracing the natural built-up environment around them, you know, pre-development. This is the examples of passive open space, so greenways with benches, of course, the paved greenways we've talked about. I've talked about the additional trailheads that will be created near the entrance to Forestville. And this is just passive open space, ponds and native plants. We've really tried to be more intentional with allowing these pollinator gardens. We understand, right? And we really can't do anything about knowing that a lot of the natural environment will go away, but we can make sure our natural open spaces really celebrate the existing native vegetation and flora and fauna that was there before us. And and you start to see that through our commitments to creating community gardens and flower gardens. All those things equate to this. And that's something that we've really started to be intentional about. And I will, before I turn it over to Brittany Chase, our traffic consultant, I just want to pause, and I'll be glad to answer any questions that you all have of me. So thank you very much.
I got some questions. So
Yes,
on
sir.
the concept plan at the bottom of the lot summary, explain what any lot size can vary up to 10% means.
Well, I think it means just what Meredith talked about in her presentation, that this is a concept plan, but that this is not an engineered plan. So what does govern is the types of lots and their lot widths, their lot depths. Those are absolutes. When in terms of if we call a lot this type of lot, we know we have to fit and meet those minimums. We know we can't go below those with where we're shown in the concept plan. But we also know that these lot lines aren't exact because this isn't an engineered preliminary plat.
So could some of these sizes get smaller on there if they're all minimum of 5,000? Could some of those that are projected for 7,000 get smaller because of this calculation?
The minimum lot size can't get smaller. Does that make sense? If it's a pink lot here, or if it's a yellow lot, or if it's the red lot, that can't be reduced from its minimum lot size.
So you're setting these as minimums for those different widths of lots, basically.
Yes,
So a 60-foot wide lot wouldn't be any smaller than 7,500,
correct.
and then down the list.
I apologize with the fine print. Tough to read for me, too. Yeah, I need my readers.
Any reason you took the Greenway Trail from around the park? I mean, around the lake?
This area right here,
Yep, it was on the south side also before around it.
I think that's just wanting to protect the existing pond area. I know that there were questions about the dam and its, and the overall state of it. And, you know, quite frankly, as we look at the existing pond, that's just something that we want to keep. And we really thought that it was important to have a more direct route through the active open space into the public trailhead. So that was why we changed it from a more meandering path to a more direct path through the site to the public
So
trailheads.
in the future, how would it connect to Centaur Road as part of the Greenway Trail if that ever got developed?
I think it would connect through, you would have sidewalks. You're going to have public sidewalks along this road. So you're going to have a sidewalk along Burlington Mills eventually. So this would be probably, and I don't want to speak for the town, and Meredith, Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, you know, usually you'd have something similar to what you have in Cary or Apex when you've got the American Tobacco Trail, right? So you have a high visibility flashing pedestrian crossing here along Burlington Mills, and then you'd either go down here and enjoy and go down here with the sidewalks, or you could go down this road and then go through and go through on down to the greenways as well.
That lot that you're showing, if it doesn't get developed, it won't have a sidewalk in front of it.
This lot right here.
Yes, that 5 acres.
Okay, so then it becomes a direct route here, where you cross the street here and then go direct.
So they'd have to go all the way to the bottom to get to that Greenway Trail, through that space.
Yeah, through our property probably. When we develop that phase, that's gonna be required. And they'll be typical multipurpose.
Just getting clarification that greenway will be a requirement when that phase is developed. So that green will be in existence,
Up onto there, even though it's not shown?
correct.
Okay.
And that's outlined in the zoning condition commitment.
So on the 2 parks also that are at the bottom, they're currently in flood-prone soils and floodways. How do y'all propose that you can develop that according to the Wake County GIS?
Which parks are you?
The ones that are on Forestville Road, the trailheads?
These 2 trailheads? Yeah, we see this a lot with existing parks around. You see it adjacent to the American Tobacco Trail as well. They've done this. And this is where we would work with staff, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a paved parking lot. It can certainly be gravel or something, but, you know, this was intended. Yep.
So the greenway will be all deck.
All right, so just to confirm, the greenway will be boardwalk through there to protect that environmental area, which is something that, you know, we see all the time. And then the public trailheads, just want to be clear, those are developable areas. Those did have lots there previously, so they aren't part of environmental areas.
Quick question. How
Yes.
many units?
Overall units, I believe, has not changed. I think this concept They shifted slightly. We actually have more larger units than smaller units
Right.
with this one, which
We
is,
were proposing 600, and I did some math just based on this rendering here. We're down to 560 now. Based on the number, of course, that could change, but that's why I wanted to just get some verification. When we started this process, it was, I think we were around 600. And so that's why I wanted to at least get some verification there.
in terms of,
How many lots are we looking, how many units, sorry, how many units?
I think we're looking at what's before you, correct, Jacob?
Is that what we're going with, the 560, give or take?
Thank you for allowing me to phone a friend.
Not a problem. Would your friend like to come up?
He was saying that we're okay with committing to 560, 565. The 600 number came from the original traffic study.
Right, okay, yeah, absolutely. And that's why I just wanted to get some clarity there.
I'll note it was 600, but those 4 acres in the bottom right corner, that was usable land, and that's lots given up for the park.
Oh, what section? Sorry?
The lower left corner that Steve was just asking about, or Mr. Hill was just
okay.
asking about, the public park, that's being dedicated to the town, and that was usable lots.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? All right,
So-
thank
so
you.
just for clarification, to
Sure.
follow up on the Greenway, coming in from Burlington Mills, so it's going to come on the north side of that road and hug the pond and then connect to the Greenway that you have illustrated, is that correct?
There'll be sidewalks on both sides.
So just sidewalks, not a Greenway on the north side?
We can work with staff. I know sometimes that, in terms of a sidewalk where we know it's part of a regional greenway system, we do an enlarged sidewalk, more of a 10-foot multi-use path. So that's something we can certainly do.
Yeah, because I think to reiterate the concern here is if our plan has a Greenway going up Centauri Lane, then we would like to cross directly across from it, rather than having to cross and then go up a sidewalk to the park entrance just to get to it, or have to drive all the way, or walk or bike all the way through the neighborhood to get to the Greenway. So we would like to see that consistency with crossings and continuity.
That makes sense.
And the other comment I'll mention, in the back of the bicycle and pedestrian plan is in the open space and greenway plan is the outdoor museum. I don't know if you saw that in that plan, but I would like to suggest looking at the back of that plan and that amendment, because Tom's Creek, there's been a lot of history along Tom's Creek, and I'm glad it's been renamed, and I'm glad that we're going back to some of the history, and the outdoor museum is one of those ways of preserving that history. So there's a couple sites here along the southern greenway where an outdoor museum site would be perfect, and I think you've got plenty of content, given the contact you have with property owners and the history, to incorporate some of that. And of course, you can always contact the local historians for more information on that, but I would appreciate that as well. I think that'll be a big highlight to the community as well.
I think we can look into that. We've had several conversations with planning and Parks and Rec
Yep.
after the fact, so.
Another question. Why put fence just around the Keith properties and not along the Tuckahoe and the Forestville Road residentials? In your description, you talk about doing it all the way around, but it's only noted on that. Is it intended just to be there, or is it just missed? Is it going to be under both there's 11 lots on Forestville Road and all the Tuckahoes?
Okay, so I think it's something we can look at adjacent to Tuckahoe. I think that's a good thought. We can take a look at that. I think from our standpoint, the rest of the properties have a pretty significant buffer than the other properties. So that was our thought behind that.
And have you been able to have conversations with homeowners about blasting and well issues?
Yeah, I have confirmation from Tuckahoe representatives that they do testing twice a year, and so there's no need for it. And any blaster is going to do their own probes for their own liability and insurance. They have to test. And I will note that blasting in Rolesville is not unusual. So pretty much all neighborhoods have blasting protocols. So.
Thank you.
They're blasting right next to us, and it's exciting at times.
All right. Any other questions, Ms. Holloman?
I don't have any other questions, Mr. Chair.
You say you had your traffic to
Yes,
give a
I'll
presentation?
give it up to Brittany Chase. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Brittany Chase with Exalt Engineering, and we've been working with the development team to ensure that responsible and safe development is occurring from a traffic perspective. So based on the analysis, the TA that was performed by Stantec, the town's on-call traffic consultant, the measurable impact of the proposed Pierce Farm development was confined to the intersection of Forestville Road and Burlington Mills Road, as well as the site driveways. We have this conceptual horizontal layout. One of your questions from the December meeting was, how are these improvements going to impact the surrounding adjacent properties? So the improvements at the intersection include a westbound right turn lane and a southbound right turn lane, as well as the extension of the existing left turn lanes at the intersection. So the red shows the widening that will occur. The blue is the existing roadway. And due to the increased capacity that these committed improvements provide at the intersection is actually projected to operate better than if the development were not built. And as Drew and Laura mentioned, the developer is working with adjacent property owners to find design solutions that meet DOT and town requirements while also enhancing adjacent parcels. So the developer plans to make a contribution to the adjacent properties to be used for site enhancements such as driveway, safety, stormwater, and landscaping. And the developer has been diligent to find a solution for the roadway design that fits within the available right-of-way. And we've come up with an alternative that minimizes the impact of Harvest Moon and Heritage Market with just needing a small amount of right-of-way from Wake Electric.
Is that going to change the signal lights themselves? Because I know there's, I can't remember which direction doesn't have a turn signal and all that. So is the fact that you having turning lanes, left turn lanes here, going to also imply that they'll be signaled for turn lanes as well?
So the left turn lanes are existing today. There will be a signal modification that's done with the addition of the right turn lanes. And at that time, they will look at the volumes to see if there needs to be any protected lefts. The thing with, if you add an arrow for your left turn, you're taking away time from that opposing through movement. So we have to really
Right.
balance the need there.
Right.
So is the Wake Electric a commitment, or are you just in talks with them at this moment?
I believe
We're in talks.
in talks.
So it's not a commitment yet. So this is not a firm design.
No, this is very early on in the process in terms of, this is not construction drawing phase.
So what
we
happens if
have
they
those
don't give
details.
you the right-of-way there? What happens then?
We have alternatives we can look at, shifting things around, figure out.
Would those
how to-
alternatives impact Heritage Market and,
I don't think so. It's on the southwest corner, so I don't think it will.
would they?
We haven't done all the alternatives yet. This is the most promising alternative that we have to meet the adjacent property owners' needs. I don't know if you want to speak to how those conversations are going with Wake Electric.
We've reached out to them. If you look at that map, there's a little bit of a stagger in the property line next to them. And where the red comes in is actually closer to the road than the stagger. They've already moved their fence back 2 years ago when they did the new substation. They built a new substation to the west of here. So they've already moved their fence back in preparation for extra right-of-way. And I think the full turn plan's four lanes the whole way. Yeah.
Yep.
So they're prepared for a 4-lane road through there the entire way. So it's not a commitment. We'll try. They're a utility company, so they, yeah. We'll try.
So this is a little, I'm not able to rotate this, am I? So north is up? Maybe here. Is that gonna work? All right. So north is to the left of the screen. This is Forestville Road. So in addition to the improvements at the existing intersection of Forestville and Burlington, we're also making improvements at the proposed site driveways. So Forestville Road will have a southbound left turn lane and northbound right turn lane, as well as the frontage, the town required frontage widening, half the ultimate section that will be required. And as you can see, again, the red is the proposed pavement that will be associated with the widening. It's quite an extensive construction limits, about 1,500 feet. And the developer is committed to improving driveways, residential driveways that exist along these construction extents, with improvements to the aprons and the pavement that's used, installing asphalt. As well as, I drive down Forestville every day. I live in Rolesville, and I take my kids to WRL for soccer practice. So I drive down Forestville to access 401. And then I understand that the shoulders are narrow. There's a deep, steep ditch right to the side. I understand how it feels driving down that section. So within these construction limits, the developer is also committing to either widening the shoulder section and creating kind of a flatter slope for those ditches, or installing curb and gutter to kind of create that more safe feel as you're driving through this area.
And the bridge is just to the right on this illustration, so to the south. So does construction go all the way to the bridge as well, or does it stop pretty much where it's indicated on this map?
It stops where it's indicated on this map.
Okay.
The other improvement here is the signal that will be installed when traffic volumes support that need.
When you anticipate that being?
Matt, I don't know if you have an idea of when that would be needed. I think it was phase 2.
That's correct. It was recommended as part of phase 2
Okay.
DCI.
Okay.
Where's the stormwater runoff going to go to be collected from all that increased surface area?
Taking it to Tom's Creek.
So straight into the creek.
And then we have 3 proposed site driveways along Burlington Mills Road, right in, right out, and 2 what we call full movement driveways. And along, or at these driveways, there'll also be exclusive turn lanes into the site, as well as the same kind of frontage widening along the property frontage. So the developer is also committing to, in addition to those turn lanes that we're showing at the site driveways, also kind of extending that 3-lane section all the way to Tuckahoe. Again, I drive down Burlington Mills at least once a week, and I understand how those turns in the roadway can make you feel a little bit unsafe. And really, this 3-lane section and beefing up this cross section will really help with that driver comfort along this area, as well as provide a safe out for vehicles turning out of the different roadways along this section.
When will the interchange with Centaur Road be completed? Are y'all going to do the thoroughfare road completely to start with, or is it going to be phased?
I believe access B was with phase 1, and then, is that correct?
Access A, Forestville Road would be phase 1, and we would anticipate phase 2 being that connection point
Okay.
for the collection.
So phase 2 is 2028? So you won't have a connection, so all the traffic will come back to Forestville Road up until 2028?
With phase 1.
Phase 2? Or what's phase 2 on here?
Steve, it's mainly based upon sewer, so all the sewers having to flow to Forestville Road. we would anticipate phase 2 to be, essentially everything west of the site.
Okay.
And I would think, personally, I would think phase 3, but we would expect this to be a 4-year build out. I don't think it would take much longer than that for a year. So I would hope that the light would be in at phase 2 at Forest Hill Road, and then phase 3 would hopefully connect through. But that's a phasing plan that we have to get to. I believe the TIA would be more based upon lot count. So.
And I believe the driveways come online from west to east.
Yes.
So as they're constructed,
Yes.
I would imagine
So
the
that's
frontage
why
widening.
That's why the impact to the Forest Hill Road is higher at first. And we anticipate that to disperse over time with the connection through. Again, it's based upon utilities. If we need to look at something that's more mass graded through there and connecting that road through, because it's gonna be a huge community benefit, we'd be willing to look at it.
Will the traffic improvements at the Burlington Mills Forestville, will they'll be completed at the beginning of the project, is that correct?
They were not needed until phase 2. I know that the Toll Brothers had committed to constructing those with the 100th CO. Is that consistent as well?
So they would have to start on day 1.
And this is, again, this is more of a corridor field because of the length of this construction limits here. It's about 3,000 feet across this frontage. So it's going to really feel a
You've
lot
already-
safer driving through.
Talk to the owners, the Keiths right there. So that's going to be 3 lanes in front of their property connected all the way from Tuckahoe to Centaur. There's not going to be a gap in that.
I'm not sure where that property is.
It's, just below there. We see widening throughout. Everywhere you see in red.
Yeah, the whole section, so, sometimes when you see left turn lanes constructed, then it tapers back down to a 2-lane section, but they're going to have that 3-lane section that whole way between the driveways.
So you've got that agreement in place to do that with that homeowner?
Within the existing right of way.
It is?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I would just make the point that you did not start here, that we pushed you to these 3-line sections. It was the safety, but also the police aspect of these roads and the sanitation.
Yeah, this is above and beyond what was required in the traffic study. We talked about extras last time. That was a big thing, developers doing extras, and so this is a big point. One other extra I did want to note, let's see, that concept plan is up towards the beginning. So this plan, the connection that is shown between Burlington Mills Road and Forestville Road is a much more direct connection than was shown in the previous plan. And so there was nothing accounted for cut-through traffic in the traffic study, to be conservative. So we wanted to kind of put all the traffic at Burlington Mills and Forestville Road. But with this plan, we really see that there's going to be, likely be some cut-through traffic that will add relief to the intersection, the signalized intersection of Forestville and Burlington Mills. If you just look at the delay reported in the TIA, it's going to be quicker to go this way, once there's a signal at Forestville and the site driveway than using the intersection of
What do you see
Forestville and
the
Burlington
speed limit
Mills.
on that cut-through being?
I think we said 35 miles per hour.
So Google might still take you up there and go across if you don't know it, because that'll be 45 up through Forestville and there. And unless you know it, it still may not mitigate it as much as you think. Have
Well,
y'all done
we
some
also looked
study?
at the posted speed limit and the distance traveled between those two locations, and so I guess if you use Waze, it might give you a better route.
It's just like going from Chalks Road through to Rogers Road. It doesn't tell you to go through Clear Cut. It says send you all the way up to Averett Road and back on Google. And that's much shorter.
And I just want to note, I feel like this plan here and this connectivity kind of satisfies the intent a little bit more of the town's Collector Street plan as well. with the
Going
connection.
into the property to the south, we had this conversation in our discussion training earlier. Do you intend to have collector road widths going down into those 2 spurs that are on the right-hand corner in the red lots? Will they be wide or are they going to be narrower?
Oh, Laura,
We would expect them to be, we can look at them differently, but we'd expect them to be residential streets, you know. Section.
Well, that's something the town wants to make sure the connectivity, because if you start feeding that and it has to come back through yours, will it jam up those?
We could look at the one, you're exactly right, the one that's to the far right might be a good option because it's not impacting existing neighbors.
Yeah, the current comprehensive plan has a north to south connector. So it comes out on the very bottom, the southernmost point of this property. So that would be, I know that would be kind of tricky to figure out. I'm not saying to do that, but I'm saying if you're going to look at the far right road,
Yeah.
the imaginary road would have to then come back to the left and come down to the,
I think, to be honest, Derek, I think that was one of the issues with the last plan and why it was causing so much of that plan to look confusing.
Yeah.
Is because of that transportation plan was a bit of a jog. And I think this feels better, but I think if we can create another, at least decent road there, it might create some value to the south. Those are the only two because the Tom's Creek to the left is too much to cross.
correct, right.
Any other
Any-
questions for
Any
me?
other questions for traffic engineer?
Right.
All
I
right.
do not.
Does developer have anything else to add at this time? All right. Staff have anything else right now?
I can just take you back to this presentation. If you'd like to look at this while you deliberate.
All right. Did we have some public members that wanted to speak?
Sure, I can give you this.
All right, we had a few people sign up. Austin Williams had signed up first. Would you like to speak?
Good evening. Thanks for hearing from me tonight. My name is Austin Williams, and my company is Carlson Southeast, and I'm the developer of the Walbrook project on Main Street, which really nice to see some progress going out here. Most of you are probably quite familiar with our project, and I've been engaged with the town council and staff going back to 2018 with the Main Street vision plan with the town of Rolesville. Fast forward to today, that's culminated in a $4.3 million commitment from us towards the Main Street project and the dedication of about 14 acres of our project to public roadways that we are going to be building to connect the communities behind us to Main Street and other public roadways. I've been clear in the past as we've talked and worked through kind of how big can the Rolesville project be, or the Walbrook project be, with staff and many folks and neighbors with the town of Rolesville. We've tried to find the right scale for the project, and it was clear early on that the desire was leaning very heavily towards commercial and not towards residential. And so we made early commitments in our project that basically limited our residential to about 22 acres, which is 140 townhomes. It's now fully entitled. And in doing that, the commercial properties that we're now working to activate that we believe to have a development value at cost of about $120 million is way bigger than we initially anticipated. It also generates traffic, which we're mitigating through our commitments to the Main Street project. But I was clear, early on here on this stand and a number of conversations we had as we've kind of worked through our process, that the existing residential, the number of rooftops in Rolesville, while it's appealing and it's why we're here, that we need an influx of well-planned, well-designed communities close to our project. Our anchor tenant Publix is certainly counting on that. We have a number of other tenants that are counting on that as well. The developers of the Pierce Farm project did not reach out to me to be here tonight. I'm kind of here by coincidence. Last week in Charlotte, we had the annual ICSC, which is the International Council of Shopping Centers show. It's a retail convention where developers get together with tenants and brokers, and you talk about what deals you have, and you pitch projects. And I was actually in a meeting with a major bank who has interest in Rolesville and is on the fence. And so that real estate representative is presenting a site for our project actually this Friday to their internal real estate committee. In that meeting, we had it labeled as Tom's Creek, but we had this project on our flyer. And they had done a tour of Rolesville. Fortunately, some of the clearing that you see now on Main Street had begun, and they were very impressed, like, okay, this is really happening. And that's actually been a really, a game changer for us as we're now kind of entering the major lease-up phase for our project. But I was asked specifically, what is the status of this project? Because this is very meaningful for my committee, and it may be the difference in us getting this approved now or taking a look at it again next year. So I actually tracked down the developers, reached out and said, hey, what's the status of your project? They told me that there was a planning commission hearing here tonight. And I said, well, what time is it? Mark me down. So I didn't come out here without reviewing the plan. I have reviewed it in detail. I'm certainly not in favor of growth for growth's sake. But I believe this to be a very smartly planned project, consistent with the plans for our project. Actually, we work closely with Greenways and Parks and Rec to design greenways for our project that basically pick up from town-owned property. At least eventually, we've made a leg that connect to the town. I guess we call it the triangle north of Carlton Point, and to pick up the sidewalks from Carlton Point on Virginia Water Drive into a 10-foot multi-use path, takes it all the way up to Main Street, across Main Street at Virginia Water Drive intersection, back to the water tower property, which will eventually connect to this property. So, you know, it's part of the, really, I think, anyway, I appreciate the way that they've looked at their project and feel like it's very thoughtful and similar to how we have planned Walbrook. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have of me, but I'm here to say that I'd really appreciate thoughtful consideration of this project. The opportunity for commercial growth in Rolesville near term will be positively impacted by this project moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
All right, we had Charles McDonald had signed up.
Good evening, Planning Board. Thanks for letting me speak. I currently live in yes, Charles McDonald, 1405 Kennesaw Street. You're welcome. Which Kennesaw Street's in Stonewater, as you guys know, is in close proximity to this project. And, you know, I just wanted to talk to you guys, let you know that I'm in full favor of this project. I'm really excited about the road improvements that were discussed. You know, the open space, the greenway trails are things that, you know, in my opinion, Rolesville needs more of. I've been here for almost 5 years now and feel like, you know, this project and the changes are good changes and good for the community. And I agree with Austin that, you know, more rooftops brings more opportunities for future developments, you know, such as the Publix and future, you know, right now we do our shopping at Wake Forest because it's more convenient for us than Rolesville. But, you know, it'd be great to have that ability to do that shopping and, you know, go out to eat in Rolesville, you know, rather than having to go elsewhere. You know, one of the things that I was excited about was the different product sizes. I know it was discussed on the lot sizes, you know, the way I see it, you know, my two oldest kids are at NC State currently right now. My youngest is in high school. You know, we live in a 4,000 square foot house in Stonewater, which, you know, we're not going to need 4,000 square feet very much longer. You know, a couple years, we're going to be looking to downsize. And I think this is a great opportunity to do that, stay local, stay close to where we're currently living, where we've been living. And that's why I'm in favor of the project.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, had Ann Keith. If you would, please state your name and address.
Ann Keith, 4244 Burlington Mills Road. And I'm on three sides with the development. They have worked with numerous ones. Some of us are more in agreement with what's been agreed on. I have signed an agreement. They have taken care of my well problems in case the blasting messes with the water pressure, etc. It will be tested prior to beginning, and it will be periodically tested throughout, and that's in writing. As far as the availability and privacy and concern of dogs, children, toys, using I have a path that I have to maintain myself. And that was one of the reasons that I wanted some privacy. I told him if I could just put a tent over my property, I'd be good, just to be that way. But I can say that Drew and Jacob and that group has worked with me with concerns. Everybody's not there. There's still things to do, but they have made every great effort to at least contact people. And I had to give, but they had to take. So it's been a good working relationship. One thing I do want, as far as the intersection of Forestville and Burlington Mills, please have a dedicated left turn all four ways. Right now, if you're going up Burlington Mills toward Forestville, you got to wait for the traffic coming from number 1, heading east, to make that turn. And it's do or dare sometimes. But I would ask for consideration on that. But I am pleased with the cooperation and with the meetings. They're just a phone call away, and sometimes they call maybe more than we would like for them to, but they stand in contact.
That's good to hear. Thank you. All right. Margaret Watkins. Please state your name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry. Margaret Watkins, 407 Belmelin Court, Big Forest. I've actually worked with Mr. Anderson and Mr. Myers on previous projects, and they're very easy to work with. Probably the easiest developers I've ever dealt with. Let me put it to you that way. I didn't hear whether or not there was going to be a stoplight at the main road here in Burlington Mills and Forestville. I guess the cut-through road. That would be something that you guys may want to think about. But I do like the open space. And I was born and raised here. I don't understand this idea of the greenways. That just doesn't make sense to me. This is sort of something new that's kind of popped up within the last 10 years. But to be quite honest with you, I take my kids off the greenway. We go trucking through the woods. We don't use the greenways. I don't understand it. I see it as more of a problem for the municipal than I do as active, I guess, open space, but that's just me. But I just wanted to weigh in on that. Oh, and also, Mr. Anderson he does a really good job too with covering the history. I'm working with him now in Wake Forest on a project. He typically does pretty good with that. But as far as the development itself, I don't know your LDO very well to really weigh in on that. But that's it.
Thank you for the
Thank you. All right. Kelly Jennings.
Good evening, and thank you. Kelly Jennings, I'm at 3901 Burlington Mills Road. So I am at the intersection that everybody's talking about. And I too, I commend and appreciate the conversations that I've had with Jacob and Drew. I wish that we were a little bit further along with an agreement. I think that they are, willing to work with us to ensure both, hopefully viability during the process, and also to make sure that, the aesthetics that we need and, at the intersection and for our home and business are maintained. But present time, I just spoke with Drew, met with him on Thursday, and was presented with an option to purchase landscape and grading easement. And frankly, having been presented with that on Thursday and then being here on Monday for a planning board meeting, didn't feel to me like, quite enough time for due diligence for me to consider the details of that agreement. I think it's a little premature to put a financial, a monetary value to what may need to be done as far as landscape and site improvements might be, when we don't know yet that the intersection, I don't know if the map that was shown with the right-of-way, where the impacts were going to be, was one of maybe 3 scenarios that we had looked at. And so without a plan in place, and we're looking at concept, I don't think that we can say how much it's going to cost to fix or ensure things are done the proper way until we know exactly what that means. So I'm willing and certainly want to continue to have the conversation, but it would be premature for me to say that we've got it all figured out. We don't. I don't know what that means in the concept of what we're doing here tonight. I don't know if there's a way, for me to have any kind of, insurance or contingencies that this conversation is going to continue and that what needs to happen on our property happens. I know from previous experience back, I think we were notified in 2009 when road improvements were done at that intersection when the middle school was being built. That started in 2009 with notification, the project actually, initiating in 2011. And I think final release on finishing that up was about 2014. So about 5 years worth of, I would say, lots of unanticipated problems with drainage, with stormwater management, with the water that we were taking on our property. There were things that we were forced to contend with that either weren't anticipated or weren't addressed or weren't agreed upon in a mutual manner that said, hey, how is this going to be handled when and if this comes? I don't know what I might need to suggest to, to ensure that we're protected during the course of this project. So, while lots of people here and admittedly with good reason are excited about roadway improvements, I get it. We live on the corner in question. Not only do I own a business there that I've operated for 20 years, it's where we live. So it's my driveway home. It's my, it's my safe access to both our home and business property for my family, for my customers. I know what it feels like in the middle of a construction progress like that, or project rather, when you're confined with barricades and barrels and equipment and noise and all the things that impact on a level that I think, unless you're looking at it in your front yard and on your side yard and on a daily basis, there's no escape at any point. Once it starts, it is literally in your face every single day. And I know what it's like for customers to come in during something like that and say, I thought you were closed. I couldn't figure out how to get in, and you're spending, me as a business owner, I'm spending money on marketing, on signage, on all the things to just assure, or try to assure, viability during that time. I don't know what kind of agreements, what we can address. I mean, I know with that project before, there was, loss of income during the construction. There were things that we couldn't know ahead of time that we were going to be dealing with. And I can't imagine that with a project the size and scope of this one, that the same thing won't happen. So it doesn't feel like a good fit for me to claim that everything is solved and worked out with only concept plans. I mean, I don't know what Wake Electric is going to do. I don't know how much, impact we're going to have. Is it the least amount of impact that's potential or possible, or can it be the greatest amount? Until I see a site plan or some engineering, or until I consult with an engineer and say, hey, what can we do to mitigate the impact here for us with this project? And not to mention, the town of Wake Forest, just on the opposite side of the street from us with Marshall Station, we're going to be dealing with it with that too. I don't know if there's going to be any collaboration. Is it going to be, getting through this and then dealing with that? Or is there any conversation between the two municipalities on how to improve that process, both for residents, for our business? There's a lot of talk and enthusiasm about new business in Rolesville, and I think that's great. But there's something to be said about somebody who was willing to take a shot 20 years ago. And that's where I am. So I certainly would hate to think that surviving economic downturns and pandemics and everything else, that this is something at this juncture that I really have to worry about the fate of both my home and business, So I fully intend and am willing to continue the conversation with Drew and with Jacob. They've been very receptive. But I don't know with this going forward, what exactly that means, like what we need to do to guarantee that that's going to happen, or when this project gets moved from the developers to the builder, what agreements, how do they transfer between, will they still be my advocacy or my contact, or will there be somebody else that's going to come in and, enforce or maintain the things that we do find mutually agreeable. I just still have questions. So, and they're probably better directed to you guys than to the board, but having had 2 days, I feel like I'm always coming in right at the last minute on everything. I haven't had time to really, I think, properly digest or give it the attention or diligence. Certainly not at this stage willing to sign any kind of a purchase agreement for a temporary construction easement or anything else, but we'll get there, I suppose, but what?
No, I just want to publicly state, kind of for the
Mr.
record.
You are? Mr. Anderson, if you could step up and give your name.
I hate to publicly speak, so,
Me too.
You're very good at it. Jacob Anderson, I live just off Marshall Farm, so I drive through here. Unfortunately, I'm one of those. I want to publicly state that so far, our game plan, and this is all that we do every day, we have provided budgets that have come to a conclusion on a number that we think will be very beneficial for each corner that we're impacting, both the Heritage Market and the Harvest Moon. To that point, as I had this dream of creating some sort of vision here of Walker's Crossroads to pay homage to the family, and that was before anyone ever asked, that was my vision. I reached out to the town of Wake Forest to make sure they're meeting the goals that we want for our side of the intersection, and I think they will. That stuff we'll continue to work on with them. But I just want to say publicly, we're early because it's taken a lot of surveying and a lot of time to come up with things that do not impact outside of the right-of-way, either property. The problem is, even if you stay within the right-of-way, which DOT could do tomorrow, and when DOT impacted both properties, they did not pay anything. Actually, Kelly had to build her own concrete driveway and drainage. And what we're saying publicly as a record is that we're probably going to end up somewhere $50,000 to $60,000 per corner. That is a statement that enhances. We're going to fix the main things first. Parking, drainage, stormwater, curb and gutter first and foremost on her side of the road, which they did not do when they came in before. So I want to publicly state that is what we're doing. That is what the agreements are saying. The reasons why you need a temporary landscape or temporary grading or whatnot easement is because we will be doing work on both properties to enhance them, again, outside of the probably $3 or $4 million worth of improvements to Burlington Mill and Forestville alone. So Unfortunately, there's no way to do that quickly. And it's a process that's going to happen over the next 18 months. And all that we can, say is that we're going to do everything that we can to continue to state it publicly, restate it publicly, put it in writing, have something signed. But what we want when we leave here, and this is why I wanted someone like Margaret to come and speak on my behalf, is because this is not new to me. We're consistent. We do this a lot, and we honor people like Kelly and what she's achieved. So that's all I can say now. So publicly stating that we plan to invest outside of curb gutter right-of-way improvements, we plan to invest another $50,000 on each corner to make them perform hopefully better than they even do today. So.
Well, I certainly appreciate that, because I know that, having been through this, dealing especially with Wake County as opposed to private development, that, anything that you do above and beyond what is necessary, goes a long way. But it still draws into question, like the easement that you're talking about, yeah.
And it's the sensitivities of timing and things, and there's no great answer. So unfortunately, I would just tell you that I would rather it be me and Drew trying to fix this problem than it be someone else.
But that was one of my questions. Will it be you and Drew when this travels or passes on through to whoever is the builder in this project?
So every agreement that we would do with you would be binding per whatever plans that we had in place, and we can make them, binding per the future zoning or whatnot. I guess we would go in front of board in 30 to 60 days, and that gives us time to do something. It's just, even in 30 days, we're not going to be able to fix or figure out all the things that are going to happen 18 months from now. So I think there has to be a little trust there, and we ask for that trust from you guys as well as the neighbors.
Thank you.
And to that point, the agreements would be binding, trying to think if there's anything else. Unfortunately, until you get to final design, which is, again...
Well, and I think that's where I struggled, because when we're talking about anything conceptually, then it's like, if I had, even just the time to have a site engineer to come and say, hey, this is where we are, these are the right-of-ways, it's surveyed, this is what we're looking at doing, and this is what it's going to cost. So it seemed to me to be a hypothetical, is this just, this is the budget, this is what we're willing to pay. What if that is a drop in the bucket to what they say that it will actually cost to do the kind of improvements that you're even suggesting that the site might need? Yes. So I don't want to agree to anything that's not
I think we're
more
willing
tangible,
to, we're willing to pay for you to have an engineer as well, which may, pay to have your own engineer. Might be a Stantec. No, seriously, it would be, that would be something easily achieved for us. That way you feel like you have someone fighting for your corner. But I do want to say that the surveying has been completed. You can drive by there now and see the staking. So you can kind of see the areas that we're talking about, and the designs that we have presented are within those right-of-way lines. Now what we're trying to do is just make sure, even the design for Ms. Keith's driveway or some of the other driveways down Burlington Mill or Forestville, those are within the right-of-way, but they're having massive impacts to a person's personal driveway. And it's just going to take us a lot of hand-holding to do the larger shoulders. But if you drive down there now, you can't stop and turn. There's nowhere to pull off on any of these driveways. And it's just going to take us hand-holding for the next year to come up with those solutions that aren't there today and that DOT will never care to do.
May I interject just a quick comment, since both of you here, and I think we're getting to that time as well. Mr. Anderson and Ms. Jennings, it's interesting watching this play out right here, because this is what we have to do. We have to make decisions on things we haven't seen yet. So it's just very, very interesting to see how you feel and how you feel. Can you imagine how all of us feel as well when we have to make decisions on things that we just can't predict or what the future holds?
Right.
We have to go based on trust, as you say, and that hope that the applicant is going to do right by the community, by the residents, and by the businesses as well. So I just wanted to make a comment, because I just find it so, just watching it on film, it's just so interesting to see these are the decisions we have to deal with as well.
And as a lifetime.
It's not easy work.
Oh, I do not envy you at all. I assure you on that. But no, and thank you.
Thank you so much.
Anyone
And I
else
know
have
my
any
mom, who-
questions for?
It's a general
Yeah, I
contractor.
have
Did I
none.
miss anything, Zero? Thank you.
No, I haven't.
Thank you.
I've got an email from a Wake Forest resident that sent to me to ask to read
Okay.
when the public comment is finished.
Oh, you add public comment?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That was our last public comment signee.
Thank you.
There.
I didn't sign up, but I do.
Yeah, I would too.
Okay. Well,
I'm Dan Jennings. I'm Kelly's husband. So all that where we live is the same so far. This has not kicked me out yet. But I just want, and I appreciate what you guys said. I represent the market across the street from Kelly's store. But just you guys saying that, and I've seen you guys work. I could not pick a better developer than what your dad has done. I mean, I'm impressed. I've been here a long time. But you just standing up and doing that gives me a lot more comfort. And just, you know, we haven't really seen any plan what the Heritage Market stuff. Linda's been tied up, and you standing up here and doing that, and I think you guys hearing it gives me a high. I'm going to let Linda know what kind of went on tonight too. So, and that's all I really wanted to say too. And the reason Kelly feels the way she does is, and we've said it before, the last project was a disaster. We were treated like crap from Wake County School and DOT. And if we tried to stand up for ourselves, we were threatened to be shut down, condemn our businesses, and so it just left a bad taste in our mouth. And that's why she's so adamant about making sure the details are correct, because I don't want to go through that again. And she's right. At the exact same time this project's going on, Marshall Station is going to be going on as well. And there's some time, we've got to get where there's some communication between the two, or it's going to be a disaster. But I think we can do it. And again, like I said, I really appreciate you guys standing up and coming up here and sitting with Kelly. And I think she feels a little bit better about it. But and I thank you guys for letting me speak for just a minute.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jennings.
Sure.
Was there anyone else from the public who'd like to speak? Please come forward.
Hi, I'm Amy Bonus, and my husband and I live at 11316 Centaur. And to us, I'm a mortgage banker. I've been a mortgage banker for 30 years, and I do a lot of mortgage loans around here. What I see is people wanting to build homes and have homes with land. So to me, what we're approving is a 600-home cluster home subdivision. And being on Centaur, I mirror Kelly's concerns in many ways. Like, I'm sorry, but to trust people is hard when they're on the other side of making a lot of money on a project. I really want to see development in Rolesville. We own property that's in Rolesville and Wake Forest on our farm, and I think that the point of the 180 townhomes, like coordinating that with all this is really important. Being on Centaur, I don't know how the traffic is going to affect us. That's scary to me, not really understanding development because I'm just on the mortgage side of it. So I mirror a lot of her concerns, and I've worked with Andy Ammons and Drew Ammons, my husband and I have before, and they are a pleasure to work with in many capacities, but it still is very scary. So I just wanted to point that out to you guys and let you know there's still a lot of unknowns here, and you're still building or trying to get approved 600 homes in a cluster home subdivision, which doesn't really feel like the flavor of Rolesville in many ways. So that's all I wanted to say, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Was there anyone else from the public who didn't sign in would like to speak? All right. See anyone else?
I want to read this
do you
email
wanna-
from
Oh,
it's from the public. It's an email to me,
okay.
if that's okay. Can everybody hear me? This is from Najla Carlton on 4909 Tuckahoe Trace, and it's to the Roseville Planning Board RE Toms Creek / Pierce Farm. Good evening, Steve. I was unable to work out my schedule to attend tomorrow night's planning board meeting, so I'm writing to express my continued concern for the development, even with the recent revisions. I spoke with Drew Ammons on Wednesday, and he explained the changes to the design for the neighborhood. I explained to him that my concern has been and continues to be the traffic. So number one, traffic. When I was in town on last month's meeting, I had at least 2 neighbors express the frustration with the carpool line in Rolesville's middle school. It has gotten so bad that the neighbors cannot use the exit closest to the school before school and at the end of the school day. With almost 600 new homes, there will be a minimum of 1,200 cars impacting Burlington Mill Road and Forestville Road. Drew explained the new design of the, quote, parkway to hopefully reduce the impact of traffic going to the stoplight at Burlington Mills and Forestville. Most of the traffic on Forestville is traveling between Wake Forest and 401. It is already impossible and certainly not safe to turn left from Forestville onto Burlington Mills coming from the high school. It is also dangerous now to turn left or right out of Lily Lyles Road. 2, density. You have raised the concerns of the density of the homes, and I agree completely. We have already experienced in Rolesville neighborhood fires impacting neighboring homes. I have concerns that Toms Creek / Pierce Farm would have the same impact. Lifestyle. My husband has lived in Tuckahoe for 39 years, and I have lived there for almost 33. All of us who have lived in the Wake Forest / Rolesville corridor have been negatively impacted by the growth through no choice of our own. We understand growth is coming, but I hope the planning board will think long and hard on approving this request for such a dense community. It will not improve our way of life. Thank you, Najla Carlton. So I can give this to include it if we need to.
Okay.
Some minutes, yeah.
I'll give it to you in a minute. I got some notes on it.
All right. Is there, I guess that's all the comments. Staff have anything else at this point in time?
Nothing else to add.
All right. I guess we're open for discussion from the board.
I have some questions and some discussion. The 800-pound elephant or gorilla, or however you want to say it in the room, is we're still at a cluster development. And I've brought up several times the impact of 5-foot lot lines with 6-inch overhang eaves as they're requesting that you have 9 foot of sunlight. And you're going to have a significant issue with trying to keep the stormwater runoff on that type of development. You can't keep grass because it naturally won't grow in that lower light. So while I'm really appreciative, and I think y'all have done a fantastic job of addressing these community neighbors, it seems like that's turned so far 180 from Toll Brothers. We still haven't addressed this density that's not great for stormwater runoff and for keeping this looking good at this 9 foot between lot lines. So how do you propose that you're going to solve this runoff issue and this dead grass that won't continue to grow in this community?
Steve, my business partner, John Myers, is here tonight to speak on our behalf. Just some of the technical questions that might help you feel more helpful.
Good evening. My name is John Myers, 7208 Falls of Neuse Road. As Jacob had mentioned, we collaborate on a number of different projects, and I've been active in this marketplace for probably 25 years or so. During that period of time, been fortunate enough to work on a lot of large master plans. Bedford, Traditions, which is in Wake Forest, Wakefield, 5401 is another good example. And I think to address the lot size issue, it's kind of a complicated issue, but a lot of it really goes back to trying to figure out what the public wants. And I think the public wants amenities, they want open space, they want housing choice options, and they want things they can afford. And so I think what we've tried to do and had to do as a community is try to figure out how do we address all of those different needs and do it in a fashion that still works within the context of, I think, what we can actually do and achieve in today's marketplace. So I think if we look at, for example, side yard setbacks, 5 feet's actually fairly generous. In a lot of different communities now, and we've developed Bedford, 5401, we have 3-foot side yards. So it's not even 5, it's 3. And to your point, drainage is a concern. I mean, it's something you have to pay attention to.
6 foot between homes?
6 foot between homes, yes. Now, what happens is you have to pay a lot of attention to the grading plan. Okay, that's typically on alley-loaded, rear-loaded home sites. So you have to figure out, is your alley going to sit above the street or below the street? How do you get your water out? There's instances as well where grass can be a challenge. Sometimes you use river rock, for example. But 3 foot is not uncommon. And if
So you use river rock, that changes the impervious surface calculation. Have y'all calculated all that in the site?
It's typically accounted for in the overall site calculations. Now, whether we would have to use river rock here or not, do not know. Sometimes you can actually achieve it as well by pitching your grade midway through the lot, and you tip half the water to the front and half to the back. So there's definitely a science to it and looking at how you deal with that. But it can be handled, and 3 foot is not uncommon at all. 5 foot for alley-fed product on 40 and 45-foot lots is actually quite generous. So I think as we look in the context of what we typically try and do, we look at a community like this here, and Jacob and Drew had asked me to look. I've kind of involved somewhat later in the game, but they asked for a sort of fresh set of eyes and perspective on it from someone who's had the opportunity to develop a number of large master plan communities. And one of the things as I looked at this is tried to say, what boxes do they check? Do they have housing options? 4 different lot sizes. Good opportunities for different product diversity. Can you cast a wide net and appeal to a wide range of potential home buyers? One of the challenges right now is, and I appreciate, as an area evolves, what might have been large lots at one time, things start to shrink up. But once again, we can't just afford to try and cater to a very small percentage of the population. We want to be able to create opportunities for a wider range. And so that's what we try and do.
That's not my issue. My issue is 4, 5, 10 years from now, in North Carolina, we get freeze thaw, and all of these things, I was in landscape management for many years, those grades change, and they don't stay the same. So pitching them back and forth, the light changes. So you can mitigate that while you manage the HOA and before you turn it over from development. But 10, 20, and these homes should last 80 years. This is a significant issue down the road where these runoff continues into Tom's Creek and onto the roads unless you manage that. That's why these small lots to me are a real challenge for these communities. It costs them a lot of money later on unless they're engineered up front.
And I think you hit it right on the head. They have to be engineered up front. I think there's no question, and that's where I think from an engineering standpoint, Rolesville town standards, stormwater requirements, and then ultimately a community like this, unlike maybe a large lot community, this will have an HOA. This will have architectural restrictions. This will have a board that pays attention and addresses things like if you do have a drainage issue that occurs. And that's not to say that they don't occur. They do sometimes because it is pretty intricate plan at the end of the day, and that's with 3-foot side yards. But it's done successfully all over this marketplace.
It's done, but I would argue successfully because I've seen lots of them. They may be done up front, but at the end, there are lots of issues with trying to manage that.
Well, and again, the one probably with as much longevity as anything I can point to is Bedford, which was started in 2001. I think it's really been a model for success in terms of addressing longevity, for example, and just how the community has functioned. I can't speak to whether they have any issues at all. Neighborhoods, they do have issues. You can't plan for everything at the end of the day, but if it's well thought out on the front end, you can mitigate a whole lot of those concerns, I think. And then going forward, it will be up to a board, an elected board of homeowners to address things as they come up. But I don't, we've not had experience where we have seen design flaws come back, later on, years later, and the residents say, this was poorly thought out, this didn't work. Fortunately, we have not had that experience, but it does take some planning on the front end.
The Reds, what kind of lifetime do you stay involved with these projects? After that, do you have a 20-year warranty, or do you have a 1 year when you're done? So,
Well, a lot of these projects have a long build-out life to begin with. So
we heard 4 years tonight. Okay, 5.
So, and I could take a Bedford, for example, or Wakefield.
We're not talking about Bedford. We're talking about Rolesville and Pierce's.
No, I understand that, but just speaking to the longevity and how long do we stay involved in it, and, where do we see problems along the line? I mean, there are projects we've been involved in for 8, 9, 10 years where we're not dealing with significant problems at the end of the project, and that's a 8, 9, 10-year cycle. I think this being a 4 to 5 year cycle, yes, I mean, it's probably going to build out in about that time frame. If there's design issues that need to be remedied, they'll probably start to become pretty apparent before the developer is out of the community from early phases. That's been our experience on working on these larger deals. So it's, once again, it's, I think as we look at out there right now, I struggle when I see 8-foot side yards and I look at the affordability question that we're dealing with now and say, how do we continue to supply housing to the public when we make it tougher and tougher to, and so I think a plan like this, it is more compact, but the benefits are tremendous amount of open space, the ability, because it does have a little more density, to provide extensive amenities and pay for those. So there's a lot of benefits that go along with a more compact community.
It's not the compactness of the community, it's the stormwater runoff. We've got climate change coming, and it's only going to get worse, and unless it's dealt with. But 5401 is one you're mentioning, but inside Wade is one I'm very experienced, and they have 9 foot between them, and they've got serious issues all over that. They've got them pitched front and back, they got rear-loaded pieces. That community has spent thousands of dollars managing this.
I'm very familiar with inside Wade, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I've got a question actually for Meredith, if you don't mind. For clarification, I think when you were doing your presentation, you showed the future land use was medium density, which is 3 to 5 units per acre, and this plan is 2.97, so it's on the lowest end of the density, which is the fewest number of homes for the permitted.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
that's correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, quick question for you as well, Meredith, if that's all right, just a quick question.
I think we're capping at 2.7, actually. So I want to make sure
Oh,
it's
did
2.7.
I say 3.7?
It's 2.97.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you for the correction.
Maybe I should have this conversation offline, but I wasn't sure, just as far as, once we go through this, let's say a community or the applicant gets approved, or whatever, does each phase have to come back? So phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, do they have to come back here or come back to the commissioners again for just further review? Or once they do get the green light, the go-ahead, they just go straight through the entire process from phase beginning to end? How does that work?
So if this, let's say you all give this a favorable recommendation and then the Town Board of Commissioners approves the rezoning. So the concept plan and all the conditions and pieces and parts are a single approval or recommendation for approval from the Planning Board and the Town Board. And the project would not come back to the Planning Board nor the Town Board.
Okay.
The next step would be the major subdivision preliminary plat, and that's an administrative staff approval. And then the construction infrastructure drawings that we looked at before.
Okay.
So-
Thank you for answering that.
Certainly. Anything else?
Any other questions? Discussions?
No, I just think there's been a lot of good conversation and a lot of, great job by the applicant, great job by the residents that are affected by this also. So I think there's been a lot of good, positive communication tonight. So,
All right,
here, no further discussion, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to go ahead and make a motion.
all right.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of rezoning request MA 21-10, Tom's Creek, or, well, I guess it's Pierce's Farm, commonly known as Tom's Creek.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
All right. Let the record show. The motion is carried with one opposing. Thank you. All right, on to the next agenda item, communications. Back to you, Meredith.
So I think on the agenda it has, I don't have it in front of me, so I have to use my memory powers. I know one's the development report, but I think before that, it's an update on your recommendations. Okay, so at our, it's just the update on the recommendations, and then the development report, training, and anything else. Okay. So at our last meeting, we went through LDO round 4. We had 3 different text amendment items. And this week, I'll be working on the staff reporter memo for the town board. So that will be at town board on April 4th. So I don't have any update for you on that, except I'm working on it and incorporating all of your suggestions to move forward to the town board. And then I think the next item was the development report. And you can see Commissioner Medley is one of the cover models right in the middle. I like the picture. So you can check this report out online under development projects. And residential permitting is slightly up in February 2023 compared to February 2022, so that is positive. And then, let's see, I think training. We had our first training session this evening at 6. And we have actually quite a list of things we'd like to continue to do training with you all on. How often do you want to do training? Do you want to, staff could look at the agenda and see when we have a lighter agenda versus a heavier agenda and insert training on lighter agendas?
I like that idea.
Okay.
Lighter agendas,
And
just my opinion.
sure, we can kind of be flexible if we have a couple cases. Like this case tonight took a little while. I'm not sure I would have, since we started early, I think it's fine. I'm not sure I would have put training with this item tonight if we were starting at 7. So we can,
Are there any particular matters that you feel, for lack of a better term, we are most deficient in that would require some education versus some things that are just more helpful to refresh or whatnot?
I have one thought. My gut reaction to that is to talk about the development process. I think that's a great education for everybody. I would like to go through those steps. And then I would turn it back on you all. Is there something you feel like you're missing or something you would like to discuss?
I think that process, I personally think it would be great for all the boards and committees, the commissioners, the planners, and the Parks and Recreation. I think that should be a whole
big work
presentation for you guys to do to all of us.
Okay.
Maybe individually, but maybe at once, just to get it out of the way and be totally separate, just some totally different thing outside of what we're talking about here. Because I think that's going to help. I just think that helps put everybody on the same page on the town. Because I think we have some gaps here and there in that respect. But for this, I think the lighter agenda or quarterly, I think a quarterly 1-hour session like we did today would also be something to consider, my perspective.
I think that would work.
That's all I had.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Town Attorney's report.
I just want to say thank you guys for being here tonight for the training. I think it was really, really helpful and beneficial, and thank you all for putting it together and making it happen. So that's all.
All right, thank you. All right, is there any other business?
I just want to say something, because I can't push you for this,
Any other business?
Just to note, if you haven't driven on Rolesville Road past the high school where they've done all that digging, they've removed those trees around that corner, and it makes it so much easier to go right.
In the sharp curve?
That
Visibility.
sharp curve,
Yeah.
that visibility,
That's
I mean,
good.
if we had done that 10 years ago,
That's all we needed.
because now you can see around the corner before you came around blind.
I've noticed that same thing, man, I'll tell you, especially at night, it's so much nicer. Hate to see all the trees.
Rather see a couple trees than a car.
Well, I know too, I know.
All right.
Very nice.
If there's no other business, we'll open the floor for a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Motion is made, second,
I'll second.
and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.